Welcome to our live stream in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, coming to you from our unbelievable studios as always. And we certainly do appreciate your participation. Might be lunch break for a lot of people. We'll try to supplement, your food with a little information here, and it's timely because the Cincinnati Bengals basically tomorrow play their final preseason game against the Indianapolis Colts. The following Tuesday, they have to cut down to 53 players. That's a bunch of people. Oh, about 1,200 players league-wide are going to be on the waiver wire. It's unbelievable. 500, a little over 500 of them will be reclaimed to practice squads, 16-player practice squads times 32 teams. If you have an international player, you get a 17th practice squad players. The Bengals do not. So they're going to be reclaiming 16 players. Those guys make $12,000 a week. Not bad. Pretty good eats. Veterans can make $16,000 to over $20,000 a week. So, you're looking at minimum of $215,000 to be on the practice squad, and you keep your hopes alive to be an active player in the National Football League, getting games that make you a vested player, active for games during the week that make you a vested player, and start building a retirement plan, which the NFL has a very good one. So there's a lot on the line for a lot of these players. There's no question about it. In 2020, they changed some of the rules. You can have on your practice squad, you can have 16 spots, like we said. 10 of them have to be rookies. You can have rookies and 2-year players, and then there's no limitations on the others. So it's fair game. It's open season. There's what is a veteran player? Well, 6+ games on an active roster. You can have a player with 2 accrued seasons that way. I mean, there's a lot of rules and regulations. Bottom line is these young players, 10 rookies can be on a practice squad times 32 teams. 320 rookies can keep their dream alive. And then the rest of the practice squad players can be veterans that, for whatever reason, have not been able to hold on for a number of years, but they're trying to get as many years as they can with at least four games that you accrue active on a roster, so you get a retirement year involved, like we talked about. So it's this. Bottom line is this preseason game, not just for the Cincinnati Bengals and the Indianapolis Colts, for everybody league-wide, there's a lot in the line. And the Bengals and the Colts are going to approach it very differently. The Bengals maybe going to play a starter or two. Maybe. The Indianapolis Colts are going to play their starters for a half. Steichen believes in that. He believes in playing those veteran players, getting them ready for, final tune-up. The Bengals use the joint practice as a final tune-up. The number one's got a lot of work. And I'll tell you, 2 weeks in a row, both of these football teams, the Indianapolis Colts had the Arizona Cardinals come to Indianapolis for joint practices, and then they traveled to Cincinnati. And I think last night was the night, or maybe it's tonight. I think it was last night because they have pregame meal at the hotel. Last night, I think they went to Jeff Ruby's. I mean, they're going to be here 3 nights in Cincinnati. A little bonding, a nice dinner at Ruby's, all that sort of thing. The Bengals did that in Chicago. They did their bonding and rookie show and all those sorts of things that go on. So I really have a sneaky suspicion that in the not too distant future, there might be one preseason game, maybe one, and all the rest of it is going to be joint practices, and the players will probably get paid somewhat for those joint practices. And honestly, everybody loves the joint practices. The officials do. They get a lot of reps. They get a ton of reps. It was Hockey League's crew was in town. They're not doing the game, but they stopped in Cincinnati on their way to their final destination for a preseason game, and they work together. And I mean, they like working together as a group with live reps with the highest level of football, players out in the football field doing that. The players and coaches like to have those joint practices officiated by the highest level of officials that you can have. So it's a win-win deal for everybody. These joint practices have turned into something I think that is going to be even bigger in the future. We shall see. But boy, there's a lot of guys that are fighting for jobs. It's like, let me give you my little estimation or whatever on the roster, because that's Tuesday. Bengals are going to have to cut down to 53. So in a perfect world, say we have 25 defensive players, 25 offensive players. Let's go to the defense first. I've got 10 down linemen. And the way I'm working it, I've got 5 interior. No, I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 5 and 5. 5 edge rushers, edge people, and 5 defensive tackles. An even split there, 5 and 5. I have 5 linebackers making the football team, and my 5th is Muma Jungmeta, who has led the team in tackles the last couple of weeks. He's made a statement. He's made a big-time statement. And, obviously, Darren Simmons is going to have to make a determination with him with respect to special teams, and you would think a linebacker would have big involvement in special teams. And as always, Darren Simmons is going to be the one that gives the final blessing to all these players on the back end of the roster, the final whatever spots on the roster. It's going to be dictated by who gives Darren Simmons the most special team snaps. And that's going to weigh heavily. So 5 linebackers and make it, and then 10 on the back end. And on the back end, it's going to be very interesting. Will it be a 5th safety? I got Geno Stone, Von Bell, Jordan Battle, and Dejon Anthony making the football team. Tyson Anderson and P.J. Jules are in a battle for that 5th safety. They all have roles. And I can see 5 safeties and 5 corners making it. If not, now you got to go 6 corners and 4 safeties. Corners that are making it: Mike Hilton, Cam Taylor-Britt, DJ Turner, Dax Hill, Josh Newton. Those are the 5, if it's 5. The 6th is a battle between Jalen Davis and Alan George if they go 6 and 4. So, again, special teams are going to determine a lot of that. 25 offensive players, 6 wide receivers. Jamar Chase, get that contract done. Sense of urgency is approaching. It's going to bubble up. It always does. All of a sudden, overnight, man, they're close. And the next day, contract's done. I mean, I can foresee that. And it's getting to the point in time where it needs to happen for everybody's sake, for Jamar Chase to start the season the way he wants to be able to start it physically. But got Jamar Chase, Yoshi Bosch, obviously, Trenton Irwin, T. Higgins, Charlie Jones, Jermaine Burton. So those are the 6 wide receivers that I've got making the football team. It's either 9 or 10 offensive linemen, and then it's 4 or 5 tight ends, depending on what happens with the offensive line. But you got Orlando Brown, Cordell Volson, Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, Trent Brown, the 5 up front. Jackson Kirkland, for the first time, played right tackle in the scrimmage, or the joint practice, I should say, against the Indianapolis Colts. He had never played right tackle before, ever. High school, college, ever. So they're saying, all right, you look pretty good at left tackle. You played left tackle at Washington. You look pretty good in that football game, left tackle. Let's see you in right tackle. I'm sure he's going to take right tackle snaps on Thursday against the Colts, probably a lot of them. So they're saying position versatility. We know you can play both guards. You can play left tackle. Can you play right tackle too? So Jackson Kirkland, I think, is he's a guy that's on the rise. There's no doubt. Cody Ford, having a very solid, strong camp. Mims obviously is injured right now, but Mims is. It's either Mims or Trent Brown at the starting spot at that left tackle position. I mean, at the right tackle position. Orlando Brown's obviously the left tackle. And I have Matt Lee making the football team, so that's my 9 right there. So it's very, very interesting. You got guys that are ascending. Actually, that Lee would be my 10th. So I got 10. No, that's my 9th. He's my 9th. So then the 10th is a battle between Nate Gillum, Trey Hill, Eric Miller. I don't think Jackson Carman is in a very good position at this point in time. But I think it's going to boil down to Trey Hill and Nate Gillum battling it out for that spot. Eric Miller's a practice squad candidate. We'll get in the practice squad here in just a second. So 9 or 10 offensive linemen, 4 or 5 tight ends. 4 tight ends that are a given: Drew Sample, Gesicki, Tanner Hudson, Eric All Jr. And then that 5th tight end, McLaughlin or Grandy. So it's it's going to be interesting. I mean, a lot of spots I think are pretty much determined. There's only a few position battles that are being fought, but that's 25 offense, 25 defense, 3 specialists. That's the 53-man roster as I see it. And obviously, at this point in time, because of injury, if nothing else, I mean, Ryan Rako has got to make the football team. Evan McPherson and Cal Adamitis, the 3 specialists. So practice squad. Then you make the determination, who do you want to bring back to the practice squad? And it doesn't have to be all the guys that you let go. Everybody, I mean, like I said, there's going to be 1,200 guys out there. Maybe on the back end of the 53-man roster even. It's like you're not safe on that back end of the 53-man roster. That's why this preseason game, and really for all these guys that have been playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, the 2s and 3s have gotten a ton of snaps. And they're going to get all the snaps again. They got all the snaps against Chicago in the football game, basically, except for one series where a couple of guys that are battling in the back end, Dax Hill, is battling at that corner position with DJ Turner. They both went out there for like a series. Dax was out for one series. I think DJ stayed in for 2 series in that football game. And the Bengals had 3 and outs. So the series that are in there, I mean, Dax Hill played 3 snaps. DJ played 6. I mean, all the other snaps were second, number 2s, number 3s. And they went against the Chicago Bears number 1s for over a quarter. They're going to go against the Indianapolis Colts number 1s for a half. Those are precious snaps, valuable snaps for the guys that are trying to and battling hard to make the back end of the roster or a practice squad. Not just here in Cincinnati, but all 32 teams. There's 31 other teams. So, man, we're talking about it's vitally important for those guys, these snaps that are going to take place against the Indianapolis Colts on Thursday night. So, expect a high level of intensity. It's like, you're not going to see the stars as such, but you're going to see really good football players getting after it, because their careers are on the line. And that has a way to make you play hard. No question about that. That'll motivate you. And I think it's going to be nothing too sophisticated. You're not going to see a whole lot of like, oh man, that was an exotic looking blitz. How about that motion and package offensively? I think they'll, as in every preseason, they want to see how guys handle players in front of them. They're evaluating the football player. I'm not saying it's going to be Pop Warner football. I mean, they're going to have some things installed because you want to see the intelligence of the players as well. And you want to see if players can adjust if there is motion and change of strength and all the things that go along with that defensively. If they give you a blitz look, can you, alter your protection to pick it up, all those kind of things. But for the most part, it's going to be, can he block him? Can he get off of his block and make a tackle? Or can he finish the block so the running back is going to be able to make extra yards after contact? Is the receiver going to get yards after catch? Is member of the secondary going to be a sure tackler? All of that, all that's going to be evaluated. So it'll be an interesting Thursday night, as it always is. And this means a lot to a lot of different players across the National Football League, not just here in Cincinnati. So with that said, I'd love to get your guys' questions, feedback, everything that hopefully everything you want to talk about, everything you want to learn. Hopefully we can help you out here. What do we got, Dave?
I'll tell you what, first we got to say hello to Dolores. She's always with us on these live streams.
All right, Dolores, how are you?
Yash from London, as always.
Yeah, my man, Yash.
So, but
how are you? How are things over there across the pond?
But we have to talk about lunch, because we called this lunch with Lapham.
Yeah.
What people don't know is the grill's on, and First Star Logistics is cooking hot dogs, hamburgers,
absolutely,
all sorts of things. And I saw you with some ice cream.
Oh yeah, ice cream. I had a cheeseburger, a little ice cream. Hey, First Star Logistics, they take care of their people and fill you up. It's all good.
All right, we're gonna go to Trav. And Trav says, hey, Lapham, what do you think about the insane amount of money being paid to play the greatest game in the world?
I think it is crazy, but it's not insane, because how about the insane amount of money that is being generated for the game? You've got the Dallas Cowboys as a franchise now worth over $10 billion, $10.3 billion. Jerry Jones paid $160 million for it. And everybody was like, oh my God, what is he doing? What's going on? And now he's got an asset that is worth about $10.2 billion more than he paid for it. The TV contracts are out of this world. I mean, it's a multi-billion dollar business. So, the players are going to get paid. The collective bargaining agreement, the unions are going to make sure that in those collective bargaining agreements, the players get their fair share. And the NBA, it's the same way. Major League Baseball. I mean, there's just big money in sports these days. There's no question about it. And I just keep thinking, where is the leveling off period? Where is the point where it starts to level off? It's blown by all my level off period points many, many times. And it probably will continue to do that. But man, I mean, it's like, I often think about what would Paul Brown think? Because I remember Paul Brown saying, son, that's a lot of money we're paying you to play football when we were making $25,000 to $30,000 a year. I bet. I wonder what he's thinking right now when you have guys making $25 to $35 million a year, not $25,000 to $30,000 a year. I mean, it has gone crazy. And there'll be $100 million player. It's going to happen sooner rather than later. There might be a $60 million player under contract this year at some point in time. Who knows? I mean, it's absolutely mind-boggling the amount of money we're talking about in football to play the game of football. And they really do. Player safety is a big concern at all times. They really take care of the players at training camp. The training camp that I just finished watching here is so different than the training camp that I experienced for many years in the early stages of my career. And I'm not saying that it's not better. It is better, but boy, a lot of work for much less money back then. I can tell you that. The game has come a long way for the players from a player standpoint in terms of how they're treated at the workplace and how they're compensated at the workplace. It's an unbelievable life. That's why everybody, is going to do everything they possibly can to make it, and to make it for as long as they possibly can make it, because there's not a whole lot of jobs out there like it. That's for sure.
Got to give a shout out to Donovan, who said, I timed my lunch properly to be here in the trenches.
Yeah, there you go. There you go, Donovan. We appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in, and appreciate you being part of this.
We got another Dave Lennox. Lap, what position battle has really impressed you so far?
There's a good number of them, really. I think the last few, trying to make the last roster spots, like we're talking about in the secondary, there's a good battle going on. I mean, they're going to keep 10. They're going to keep 10 defensive backs, I think. Will it be 6 corners and 4 safeties? I mean, or five of each, 5 corners, 5 safeties. There's a battle going on. Every safety feels like they have a role, and it's like, okay, they're battling for a roster spot, and special teams are going to be a factor. The tight ends will have something to say about it. There's going to be 4 or 5 tight ends, and the last tight end is battling for a roster spot. And you're thinking, well, how can the last defensive back and the last tight end be battling for a roster spot? Not necessarily by position, but a roster spot, because who's going to give you more special team snaps? Will it be that tight end? Will it be the defensive back? And, automatically you think, oh man, it's got to be the defensive back. They're faster. All the tight ends now with the new kickoff rule, tight ends are going to maybe have a little bit more to say in terms of how many snaps are divided up in their position group. So I think that's going to be the most interesting part of final decisions on the roster? Is it going to be not, and then there's battles obviously within the position groups. Is it going to be 9 or 10 offensive linemen? Well, if it's 4 or 5 tight ends, or if it's where is the extra going to come from? If you keep 10 offensive linemen, probably only keep 4 running backs. You keep 9 offensive linemen, tight ends. You keep 10 offensive linemen, probably keep 4 tight ends. You keep 9 offensive linemen, might keep 5 tight ends. So for every position that you're adding, you're taking one from somewhere. That's why I only have 2 quarterbacks and 3 running backs on the roster right now, because I'm loading up in these other positions. And with the injury that occurred, which was tragic, an injury at the running back position, injuries that took place at the offensive line position, where you had a guy that was going to make the roster potentially, for sure, I think, Deontay Smith. You had a running back that was going to – he worked his tail off. He was going to make the roster. Now I think, okay, 3 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, 2 position groups. That's only 5 players that are eating up 5 roster spots in those 2 position groups. That allows you to have 6 wideouts. That allows you to maybe go as high as 5 tight ends. But you'd like to maybe have 10 offensive linemen. But can you live with 9? These are the things that you have to decide in the final stages of the roster as you're doing a roster composition. And it might not work out where it's 25 and 25. That's a perfect world. I did my roster based on a perfect world. It might be 26, 24 one way or the other with 3 specialists. Again, if you're loading up on one side of the ball or loading up in a position, you're taking away from the others. It's a balancing act, man. And the final determination is Darren Simmons. So if you haven't played well for Darren Simmons, if you have not paid attention in his meetings, if he feels like he can't trust you because you're not doing what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to do it, but if you've been really on top of things, you know exactly where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, how you're supposed to get there, Darren Simmons is going to give you a shot, and he's going to include you and give you a role in his special teams. So special teams will be the big determining factor on these final roster spots on this football team, just like it is every year on every football team in the National Football League.
Dan the man. One, he wants to know what he has to bribe or who he has to bribe to get a bobblehead. We may have to work that out for Dan the man. But his question is, Lap, our D gave up highest yards per play last year. We lost DJ Reader. Are you optimistic our D will be improved?
Yeah, I think DJ Reader was a huge force. There's no question about it in the interior of the defensive line. But I think the rotation, Sheldon Rankins has shown he can hang. I mean, he's a tough guy, man. He's going to play the run very effectively, and he's going to give you some really good inside pass rush. He is a much more effective inside pass rusher than DJ Reader was. DJ Reader probably a more effective run stopper. But, okay, from a combination standpoint, combination of the two, where's it going to go? Where are the scales going to balance in terms of Rankins and DJ Reader? But with that said, BJ Hill is having an outstanding camp. Zach Carter is playing very, very solidly. Chris Jenkins is getting it done. Chris Jenkins was my guy. Chris Jenkins Jr., the interior defensive tackle from Michigan. He got a nice sack in the last game. He's getting it done in both areas. I think he's gonna have an impact on that rotation. And then McKinley Jackson, obviously, they haven't really had him impact training camp at this point in time, so they're waiting for that. The guy that I think is going to open some eyes is Joseph Asai, because he's finally healthy. Joseph Asai coming off the edge, man, has had an impact on one-on-one pass rush and team drills. Joseph Asai has got ability, and I think he's going to finally have a chance to flash a little bit. Feel really badly about the Miles Murphy injury because he was ascending. Miles Murphy was starting to get it figured out, and now he's got a knee injury. I hope it's weeks and not months. I hope it's just a few weeks and it's not months. I think they're gathering, it just happened yesterday. They're gathering more information on it as we speak. But hopefully that is not a Hopefully it's just a sprain. Now, sprain, we always talk about sprain, first, second, third degree sprain, and then tear. So if it's a 1 or a 2, it'll be weeks. If it's 3 or 4, might be a little longer than that. So we don't know the severity of first, second, third degree tear. Not complete tear. I haven't heard anything mentioned about surgery being scheduled, which was the case with the torn patella tendons. 2 of those that took place. They scheduled surgery, and surgery is coming up here to take care of that. But I do think that Joseph Asai is going to show himself, and I feel badly that Miles Murphy, because these guys, what they need is reps, and they were getting a ton of reps. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Asai and Murphy were both getting a ton of reps, and they were going to get scheduled to get a ton of reps in this football game as well. Asai will, Murphy won't. So unfortunately, that puts a little ding in your roster depth for sure. And then, if it's depending on what the injury is with Murphy, they may put him on some kind of a reserve injured list, for the start of the season, and that opens up another roster spot for another edge guy, or either is in camp with the Cincinnati Bengals or is going to show up in the 1,200 players that it's like, oh man, I can't believe that guy's out there. Let's claim him. Let's bring him in. So there's going to be a lot of activity in the personnel departments around the National Football League. There already is. And boy, once next Tuesday happens and get down to 53, and there's always going to be names out there where guys are like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. But for whatever reason, that guy's out there. Let's see what's going on there. Let's bring him in, see if he can pass the physical. And that's the first step of it. We'll see.
All right, we're going to do 2 questions in one. Jerry Powers is first. Hey, Lap, can you give us 1 or 2 players that impressed you and have a decent chance to make the roster? And then the other one, I'll tell you what, go ahead and do that one first.
1 or 2, I'm assuming you're saying new players, drafted players, or players that they picked up in free agency. Usually when you sign a guy in free agency, he's going to have a pretty good chance to make the roster. And a lot of your draft picks, particularly, no shock if your first 3 rounds, if those guys are playing effectively and playing well, and they are. Unfortunately, Mims got dinged. He got nicked up with that pec injury, but man, I'm telling you what, he was dominant physically. I'm talking dominant. Is a chance to be special. And I really believe there's a good shot that he might be okay to make the dance on opening day. We'll see. They're being very smart about it. They're being very careful about it. But in terms of those draft choices, I don't think it's necessarily a surprise. I think both of the defensive backs that they drafted were later in the draft. Josh Newton and Dejon Anthony, I think they liked them. I think they had them rated higher in the draft than they were selected, and they both shown themselves to be good football players. And both of them are stepping up and securing roster spots. So I think you'd have to give those guys, a tip of the cap, a nod. There's no doubt about that. And I'd say those 2 players probably, when you look at Burton at wide receiver, he was expected to go higher in the draft. The Bengals had him rated higher in the draft. To get him in the 3rd round, it's no surprise that this guy's got unbelievable talent. They already knew that. So I'd say probably the 2 guys in the back end, and then also Muma Jungmeta at the linebacker position. This guy all he does is make plays. Came into training camp, very intelligent. He got accepted to all the Ivy Leagues. His parents are like Ivy League educated, and they've got multiple degrees, multiple masters, doctorates. I mean, it's incredible. It's a very, very bright family, intelligent family. And he's also got extreme football IQ, and he kind of reads it before it happens. In the beginning, the early stages, I'm like, man, is he freelancing or is he just saying it, man? Because he's taking that first step before everybody else, and he's not taking any false steps, and he's sure of it. And he's been impressive. So I think he's playing his way onto the roster. He's right on the cusp of it, and he's got another chance to perform. but he's been the leading tackler defensively for the last 2 football games. So you have to include him in that mix. I love it when guys take advantage of opportunities presented. And he has said, I'm going to be prepared to perform at the highest level I possibly can. And the mental preparation part of it has been phenomenal. And it's not shocking, like I said, based on his background, but he is extremely intelligent and it's where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. And coaches like that. Sometimes he's there early where he's supposed to be. Coaches love that.
All right, here's the one for the double. We have bad attitude, 176. Lap, with Evans being hurt, do you think they stick with 3 backs or look at the waiver claims? And then Dolores, also kind of the same question. Hey, Lap, what do you think about us getting Pirine back with Evans out? It would be great to have that workhorse back.
Yeah, Zach was addressing that before the preseason game up in Chicago. There's been a lot of buzz about Pirine, but it wouldn't shock me either way. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they go with 3 running backs. If they go with a 4th, it's going to be 1 less tight end, 1 less wide receiver. It's going to come from some position group. My composition of the 53-man roster has them at 3 running backs. And I would not have a problem if they felt like 4 was the way to go. And again, a guy that would have to sign off on that would be Darren Simmons. Darren Simmons would be like, okay, we're adding a 4th running back. Am I going to be able to get any snaps out of a 4th running back? If I'm not going to be able to get any snaps out of a 4th running back, why are we going to go with 4 running backs? So there's a lot that goes into it. And particularly if that 4th running back is going to cost Darren somebody that on the roster, either one of the defensive backs or one of the tight ends or one of the receivers, whoever it is, it's going to cost him snaps. He won't be for it, So there's always discussion, organizational discussion, and the guy who has made the final ruling in the past is still there to make the final ruling, Mike Brown, and usually from a personnel standpoint and a lot of decision making was Zach's staff and the organization. There's been a lot of harmony there. Very, very, very little, like, oh man, banging heads, discontent, malice about a player or whatever. It's not like that. So they'll make the best decision for everybody involved. But again, I think Darren Simmons is going to have some major input.
This one, Claw. Dave, what's your opinion of Volson this year? Are we going to see a big step forward this year? You sure hope so.
I do too. I mean, Claw, one thing about Volson, he has big claws, Claw. Once he gets his claws on you, these guys that's the thing with offensive linemen these days. You can use your hands and at the end of my career, we could do it. But if you've got big hands, and I've got good sized hands, decent sized hands, these guys, I mean, it's like you get your hands inside the framework of the body and you clamp, you lock onto them, you clamp them, man, it's a big plus. And Volson is very, very strong. He's long. He's got some length to his arms, and he's got very strong hands. I do think that he's going to make strides. This is a year for him to do that, and he's even a year more familiar with the offense. And the good thing for him, he's got the exact same guys working on either side of him, and I can't tell you how important that is. And that's something with the offensive line. 4 of them across the board: left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, projected starter. They all worked right next to each other the entire year last year. It's going to be different at the right tackle position, either Mims or Trent. Either one. It's going to be a little bit different mix out there. And Cap is the guy that is going to be working with that. But Cap is somebody that can. Cap is very, very football savvy, man. This guy gets football every way and every level you can get it. He's had a good camp. I'm impressed with how many players on the football team really worked hard in the offseason. And you can see it physically. I mean, you can see the change in their bodies physically, so they really busted it physically, but a lot of them really busted it mentally as well. And the coaches have talked about that. And, you can see the physical part of it, but you can't really see the mental part of it unless you're watching tape with the coaches, and they're pointing out that, how error-free everything is or whatever the case may be. I'm impressed that the amount of work that guys put in the off season, and hopefully it pays off. I think it's going to pay dividends. So I do think Volston is in line to have a solid year and an improvement over last season for sure.
This one's from DM Dave. Who do you think will return kicks this year? And I'm going to add to that, Lap. What's your thoughts so far of the new kickoff rules in the NFL?
Yeah, it's funny. The officials, Hockey Lee's son, was the guy who was the head referee. The officials came to training camp yesterday and gave a little presentation. And I asked them, I said, okay, on the new kickoff rule, nobody's allowed to move until the ball hits the ground or is caught and is returned. Said, watching some games, I've seen guys moving. I've seen guys, covering the kick early, guys moving out of to drop into their blocking positions early. How challenging is it to cover the entire field much differently? Because you didn't have to worry about it before. I mean, guys are running up, kicker runs up, everybody's timing it, running up, everybody's just running down, covering the kickoff. And they said it's a lot different, and every crew is covering things like this differently. We have our way of covering it. Not everybody is looking with the field judge, side judge, line judge the exact same way we are in terms of kickoffs, and it's going to be a challenge for them as well. And that's because it's, when you look at it, it looks so different. Man, it's just such a such a different looking play. And I understand, only 21.8%, the officials said yesterday, 21.8% of kickoffs league-wide were returned last year. 1 out of every 5 were even returned. In the Super Bowl, there were no kickoff returns in the entire Super Bowl. So, people are like, that was an exciting play. Now with the rule changed, the officials told me after the meeting, I said, how many returns for touchdowns have occurred in the preseason? They said they've heard there's 1. And there are some big returns happening, and the fans are excited about that. It's going to be interesting to follow. The Bengals were flagged a few times, 4 times. 4 of the 11 penalties against the Chicago Bears were on special teams. And one was like illegal hands to the face mask, holding, whatever. And the officials during the preseason, they call it tightly. Well, that's what they do, particularly on special teams. They'll call it tightly and make sure that guys aren't being sloppy with their technique. So when they get into the season, they're doing things the right way. And, they're worried about getting flagged. Now, it's a cleaner play, so they're not throwing as many flags. They don't want to delay the game and interrupt the momentum of the game in the regular season like they're doing in the preseason with all these flags they're throwing, particularly on special teams. Because you look at the tape and it's like, that was dicey. I mean, in the regular season, I bet they let that go. And they probably would. But the kickoff rule is here to stay for a year. There will and could be modification. There's already been a couple of modifications to the original rule. So once they see things unfold, particularly during the regular season, when all the special teams coaches unveil, okay, this is what I've figured out is the best way to take advantage of this new rule. And if they find any problems that arise from that, they can make modifications and adjustments, and they can do it throughout the season. But it's going to be here for a year. It's not going to be like, half a year and then, let's go back the old way. That's not going to happen. They've committed to it for a year, but only 1 year. And really, the guy who threw his hat in the ring for returning kicks, Burton, never done it before, high school or college. Jermaine Burton, man, he's a natural at it. He can catch the football, and that's first and foremost. That's the most important thing. Catch the ball. Don't put the ball on the ground. And he's got good hands, and he is decisive. I mean, he'll get north and south very quickly. He is in the mix to return kickoffs and punts. If he's not the primary returner, Darren knows he's got a guy that has shown, I got some depth at that position too. This receiver that what number of receiver is he? Is he number 4? Is he number 5? Is he going to win the number 3 job? I'm not sure that necessarily he wins the number 3 job, but he's going to be in that mix somewhere as a receiver. Well, he can be a punt returner or a kickoff returner for you as well. And that adds value. Position versatility, as we always talk about. The more things you can do, the more valuable you are to your teammates and your coaches.
All right, this one comes from Bangalorean. What's the wide receiver room look like to you in a year when the dust settles?
In a year when the dust settles, I think the dust.
You got Chase's contract. He's
Oh yeah, I mean, Chase is going to be. I'm counting Chase in the mix. Chase and Higgins has had a phenomenal camp. I'm not even thinking about going into the season without Jamar Chase on the Bengals roster. Now if that's the case, if he's not there for week one, he'll still be on their roster. They're not going to cut him. They're not going to put him. I don't know if they can't put him on any kind of list. I mean, he's under contract. So, I mean, what's he going to retire? I think he's going to be I think he'll be playing football for the Cincinnati Bengals. So you got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Man, T. Higgins made another catch in was it the red zone or third down? Can't remember which period it was. There were 5 periods. It was identical. The joint practices in Chicago and yesterday with Indianapolis, it was the exact same schedule, the exact same format. Period 1 was base, a lot of second down stuff, and they had a third down period was the second period. They had red zone was the third period of it. Move the ball unscripted was the fourth period, and then the fifth period was 2-minute. It was either base or third down. I think it was base. It might have been the first. Let me see. Let me dig into my notes here a little bit more, because it was base. There it is. T. Higgins high pointed the football, and I mean, when I'm talking high pointed, there was outstanding coverage. And T. Higgins at 6'4" and long and the ability to jump. I mean, he high pointed that sucker. The defensive back couldn't have played it better. And it was Joe Burrow's like, T, I trust in T. And he put it up there for him. And he knew if T didn't catch it, nobody else was going to. Where it was, the only guy that could catch it was T. Higgins. And he's had a hell of a camp. In that first drive or that first period yesterday, T. Higgins had a couple of plays. I mean, I thought in the base part of it, he really showed up. He jumped out at me. And so did Chase Brown. Chase Brown had a couple of plays where he kind of flashed his speed and his ability to accelerate. Third down in red zone, Gesicki stood up and made plays, man. Third down, he had a one-handed back shoulder catch as his other hand was being grabbed, his other arm, and no call. So he just made a one-handed back shoulder catch anyway. It was incredible. He made a nice catch in the middle of the football field in the red zone. He was a huge factor. And I think he is going to be a huge factor on third down and in the red zone. I think Joe Burrow trusts him, believes in him. That's going to be a big combination right there. That's going to be fun to watch. So red zone, again, he made some plays. Moved the ball. The guy that showed up to me was Sample. Sample made some catches, and he had a tight end trap where he pancake blocked the defensive end. So, it's like different people at different periods of the scrimmage showed up, and wide receivers, tight ends, running backs. The screen game has been fun to watch. They're screening to running backs. They're screening to the tight end. They're screening to wideouts. They've got a very, very complete and sophisticated screen game. But my receivers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, that's a pretty good duo to start with. Josivas has shown himself. I think he's coming on. He's ascending. He's athletic. He's much bigger and stronger than he was last year. He knows the offense cold. Another guy that everybody sleeps on, and every single year he shows up at camp. Two guys that always show up at camp and have to kind of re-win their role, Trent Irwin and Tanner Hudson. And they're both doing it. They both show up every single year, and they take nothing for granted, and they go out and they have hellacious training camps. So, throw him into that mix. Charlie Jones has been nicked up a little bit, but, he's got plenty of speed. Another guy that's a heck of a returner when healthy. Yeah, they're going to be fine. they're going to be fine at the receiver position. And like we talked about, the rookie's in the mix too. Burton is right in the mix. He's got, from a physical standpoint, he's got a skill set that is phenomenal. Every box is checked. Got to make sure you're where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. Because if you're not, and Joe Burrow puts a football where you're supposed to be and you're not there, or he puts a football where you're supposed to be when you were supposed to be there and you didn't get there in time, you might have been working yourself there. Bottom line is, quarterback, receiver, they have to be on the exact same page. And when quarterbacks feel like, not sure if I can trust that receiver, I mean, I don't want to have to clutch it. It's like, I don't want to look longer. And is he doing it? Is he going to get there? That's when the timing's off. You're going to get hit. If not sacked, you're still going to get hit. You might get rid of the football. It's a finely tuned, well-oiled machine, man. And if you're not well-oiled and finely tuned mentally, quarterback not going to have that kind of trust and faith in you, and you can't have that. So he's working toward that. Keep working toward that. That's going to be the big key for Burton.
Lap, what do you think? I mean, after this season, successful season, you have Gesicki, 1 year deal. You got T as a tag, franchise tag. You see those guys being re-signed. You see tags. What do you, Higgins going elsewhere?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, that's another reason, Dave. I think this year it might be the year that you have to take advantage of. Might not have them all. I do think that Jamar Chase's deal, I just feel like it's going to get done. And I've seen it happen many times. When it's the darkest hour, all of a sudden the next dawn starts to bubble up. And here you go, and you get it done. This guy is one of the premier players in the National Football League. I don't care what position you're talking about. He's one of the premier players in the National Football League. So I think Chase gets done. And when that is, that's done, now you got Joe done, you got Chase. Those are big chunks of money from a salary cap standpoint. Like Mike Brown likes to reference, there's a pie. And how many pieces in the pie? And how big are respective pieces of the pie? But you can't enlarge the pie. It's just you have a fixed pie. Now, the salary cap does go up every year. It hasn't gone down, that's for sure. So you just don't know, Dave. It's like, what will the salary cap be next year? And then how much can we afford to divvy out for, like T. Higgins and Gesicki? I really do think that T. Higgins loves Cincinnati. He's proven that. I mean, he's in there working really hard at training camp. He's had a very fine camp as well. I think he's geared up to have a phenomenal season. And Gesicki loves Cincinnati. He hasn't really experienced the city as much yet, but he loves the offense, the coaches that are coaching the offense, the quarterback that's directing the offense. He loves being a part of this Cincinnati Bengal offense. So all things being equal, I think there's a shot that he'll be back. I think at this stage of his career, I think that he's looking to be on a football team that can make some noise and be closer to winning that ring than other teams he's been on.
This is going to be another kind of a two questions in one. We've got XX Skater Beast XX Lap. What are your thoughts about star players sitting out during vital practices for reasons of contract negotiations? And then Donovan, also kind of rumors that Chase will struggle with in-game contact because he's been sitting out. Do you see players not training, running into more issues by skipping team practices in training camp?
Yeah, those aren't rumors. Those are facts. I mean, those are opinions that are based on fact. I mean, how much time do you need to get ready to play a football game? Well, when there was a work stoppage for a month, guys came back after being out a month and just came back and played at a pretty good level. They're highly conditioned athletes, but as we know, like you guys are referencing, there's cardiovascular shape, there's strength and conditioning shape, and then there's football shape. None of these guys let themselves get out of condition. I mean, Jamar Chase has been in that dome down there running every single day. And I mean running hard, running 40s, running 80s, running 100s, running routes. Now, running routes on air, and catching a football is a lot different than running routes on a guy who's in front of you and he's jamming you. He's trying to take your, shoulder pads off your shoulders, and you have to fight through that contact. And there's like we talked about with offensive linemen. There's the push, pull, the tendons and ligaments, the attachments. Those are the things that have to get into football shape. That's why a lot of times when you're doing all that hitting, that's why you're sore. It's all those attachments, or your body is sore, and you have to go through that. That's why it's getting close to time. Now he's going to have a couple of weeks still. And will he be in week 1 in the shape he'll be in week 3 or 4? Probably not. And would you like to have him take all those reps? Hell yeah. I wish he was on that 12-play drive. There's nothing. The Bengals number ones have had a 12-play, 73-yard touchdown drive, and that pushes you football cardiovascularly, and it pushes you through the get my second wind and all that sort of thing. He wasn't part of that. He wasn't part of either joint practice, and those are long, arduous days, man. And that pushes you. Not just the cardiovascular and the strength and all that. Because, man, and talk to the Bengals strength coaches. Jamar Chase is in unbelievable shape from a strength standpoint. The dude's a beast, man. I'm telling you, he's a beast. But, you have to get into football shape. If all it took was weightlifting or running or whatever, track and field and, power lifters. And whenever powerlifters and people like that didn't play football, whenever they showed up in somebody's camp, everybody always wanted to line up against them, or a World Wrestling Federation guy, everybody wanted to line up against them because football's different. And that's why you have to have training camp to train yourself to play the game of football. Now, does it have to be 9 weeks? No. Does it have to be 6 weeks? No. And the Players Association and Management Council realized that, agreed to it. And I do think it's not too late for Jamar Chase to be ready to play in that opener and play effectively. But, it's the time frame's dwindling. But like you said, the fact that he has shown up, he's out there every day with his teammates. He's out there with a good attitude every day with his teammates. He's sharing knowledge with the younger receivers. And that's another thing I really love, is that the veterans are so agreeable to give the young players as much information as they possibly can. And the young players appreciate it. Man, they are soaking it all up like a sponge. And it's really good to see. And Jamar's been really good in that area. So football's important to Jamar Chase. And I just think he's going to be playing football. He's a football player, man.
We want to remind everybody, hey, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to Dave Lapham in the Trenches and the First Star Media Group channels on YouTube. And also remind you to hit that like button. There have been a lot of people posting that during the live stream. We appreciate that. And we appreciate everybody being with us. A couple more here before we let Lap go. And we're going to go Natty Ron. Hey, Dave, have you seen the communication with Stone and Bell? How's that working?
Yeah, I mean, Lou Anarumo has talked about that, and it is so obvious, so apparent. The communication was an issue last year, led to a lot of big plays or lack thereof communication. And sometimes it wasn't, okay, really didn't, I knew what I was supposed to communicate, but didn't do it in a timely enough fashion. So it's not only communication, it's timely, efficient communication. Get it recognized. I mean, that's the biggest key. Recognize, process, communicate, like right now. And that's what's going on with Von Bell and Geno Stone. I mean, it's really good to watch, fun to watch. And we've had Von Bell on, a podcast talking about it. And, I've seen him more than once saying to the young defensive backs, man, you didn't hear me? I was telling you, I got the inside. Don't go inside. I got that. He's on the field. Like both those guys are like coaches on the field. Lou Anarumo will tell you that. It's like having an extension of him on the football field. So I don't think you're going to see, big plays over the top or big plays in the middle of the football field where nobody's within X number of yards of the receiver. That if that happens, that's going to be a surprise and a rarity. I do think that the communication with Stone and Bell, between those two, and between them and their teammates, has been phenomenal. Logan Wilson has talked about it. Logan Wilson's like, a lot of times he has to turn and gather information from the safeties that affect his level, and then he can make a call down to the defensive line that's appropriate to it. It's like a chain of command. And then if the chain's interrupted, man, nobody's on the same page. And when different levels are on different pages, and then worse than that, players on that level, the same level, are on different pages, man, you got problems. You got problems. Usually leads to big plays. A lot of big plays are not due to offensive excellence, but defensive breakdown. And not because the offense broke them down, because the defense self-destructed. Not all of them, but a good percentage of them. And then you're going to have big plays because one guy's just better than another, and he outfights him for a contested catch or high points the ball or runs faster and runs by him. I mean, things happen. But, man, when you see those wide open play, it's not because the receiver, juked the guy so badly he got 10 yards open. It's because somebody broke down. Mentally it wasn't there. The communication at all levels and all aspects of it just wasn't there. And you take it for granted when all 11 guys are moving, when it's 11 moving as one, you take it for granted until it's not. And then you realize, man, we got to do something about this. And I think Von Bell and Geno Stone are going to do something about that.
Final two questions. First one, Randy Byers. Is McKinley Jackson going to be ready for week 1?
Not sure about that one. Not sure he'll be ready for week 1, but it's not season ending. He didn't have surgery. I'm not here to say that medically I can't give you an answer on that. I'd just be guessing like, anybody would. Even doctors, I mean, for them, doctors, as much as they know about these injuries, they can't give specific dates of return. They can give ranges. You always hear 4 to 6 weeks, 6 to 8, and you hope it's on the shorter side of it, not the longer side. But we've talked about it before. Every single human body is built differently. Every recoverability of humans' bodies are different. There's no cookie cutters. Every single injury has its challenges, and they're all different. The bodies are all different. The recoveries are all different. So it all depends on how severe his sprain of his MCL was. Again, first, second, third degree tear. Wasn't tear, no surgery. But if it's first or second, better shot he might make week 1. If it's third, fourth, not sure about week 1. We'll see. And, he might be a quick healer. So he may heal from a grade 3 MCL sprain faster than a guy that had a 2, mild 2 or a severe 1. I mean, it's certainly not, it's science, but it's not science to the point where you can pinpoint this is the day that he recovers. Doesn't happen.
All righty. Last question, Lapham. Again, we want to thank everybody for being with us in the trenches with Dave Lapham's live stream today as we get ready for the final preseason game and then a week off before kickoff. Week 1. Hard to believe it's here, Lap.
I know.
So we're going to go. This is the last question. Bad Attitude 176. He likes Jametta, which John Meta has had a great camp, but he's in a battle with Hayward for that linebacker spot.
He is. There's no question. I mean, you look at that. I mean, Hayward's made some plays. I mean, you can't totally throw him out of there. Shaka Hayward has shown up, but honestly, I would say that in terms of understanding the mental part of it from a football standpoint, I'd have to give the edge to Muma. And as you advance and put in more and more information into your game plans, that has to be a factor as well. But bottom line is, Hey, Darren Simmons may say, you know what? Shaka, man, Shaka can run. He runs better than Muma. I like Shaka. Shaka is going to give me more snaps on special teams than Muma. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying these are the kind of discussions that come up. Is who's going to be the guy that in space makes more plays? Because when you're in special teams, you're in space. When you're in the interior of a defensive front, you're in a box, man. He's Muma's downhill, smacking you and making. How is he out in space? I mean, there's so much that goes into it. So you're exactly right. It's not a given. It's not a done deal. But I'm looking at what Muma's done on a snap-by-snap basis at the line of scrimmage, and Darren has had him participating on special teams as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't disregard anybody. And the fact is, if one makes it, the other one will probably be on the practice squad, and at some point in time may be activated. So it's not like the way the NFL is today. If you're not on the first 53-man roster, man, there's 16 more. It's not 53 anymore. It's 69. And then there's deactivations for game day. But you can be the NFL, and if you get an international player, it's 70. I mean, these rosters are mammoth now, and it's because if guys get hurt, now you can just go right to your practice squad and bring them up. You can bring guys up off the practice squad and put them back down the next day and right after that game, and not not be have to be subjected to waiver wires. You don't have to put them through waiver wires to put them back down your practice squad. You can do that twice with a player during the course of the year. The third time, when you put him back down, he has to go through waivers. So I mean, there's a lot that goes on, but man, potentially there's 69 or 70 guys that you're dealing with, and probably both of those players deserve to be in that mix for sure. Somewhere, if not here in Cincinnati, somewhere, 32 teams in the NFL.
Again, we want to thank everybody for being with us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics from the First Star Logistics Studios. Lap, I'll let you close it out. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts is, man, I look forward to the last preseason game. I know people are like, oh, man, the starters aren't going to play. No, not for Cincinnati. But the starters for the Colts are going to play. And I thought the number one defense really handled the number one offense for the most part of the Indianapolis Colts. I thought that both quarterbacks, they just started running. I mean, there was nowhere to go with the football, and they'd start to run. Well, that's not what these joint practices are supposed to be. I'm interested to see how the number two stack up against number one defensively and offensively with the Indianapolis Colts. I feel like the number ones have gotten a lot of good work at training camp. I feel like Joe Burrow is ready to roll. I think Joe Burrow is going to come out of the gates like a banshee, man. I think he's going to be playing at a really high level. And when number 9 plays at a high level, it's usually pretty good for the Cincinnati Bengals as an entire football team. So I'm excited. I think the defense has looked really good. I think the defense has won their share of battles working against the Bengals and Joe Burrow, as well as both of these franchises, the Bears and the Colts, in the joint practices and during the preseason game. So I'm excited to see it start, man. Last dress rehearsal tomorrow night. Here we go.
Again, thanks everybody for being in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics, live from the First Star Logistics Studios. Until next time, hoo-day.
Hoo-day. Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.